On April 1st or March 31st, depending on where you live, Tekken 8 released its first update for Season 2, 2.00.01. Things just haven't been the same ever since. The following is a real take of my understanding of these changes and how they impact the character Nina Williams. Remember, if you or anyone you know is struggling, there is help available. There's so much to get through that I've decided I'm going to do two separate videos. The first one is going to be on universal changes, and maybe not even all of those, but just the ones that I feel impact Nina. The second, I will go through the actual Nina specific changes. So this video is going to be on the universal changes. There are a lot of universal changes. The first one I'm going to mention is the fact that we can now access the special training stage area. So regardless of what stage you're on, if you press up and the select button or whatever the button is on your device, you get to this stage. However, you cannot use the regular shortcut and you cannot use the side ones to get to the wall for it. So you kind of start in the middle the whole time. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. Another big one is the heat dash into crouch. So now if you do a heat dash, if you hold down, or down back or down forward, you recover crouching. This does impact Nina, but probably not as much as other characters, because the only moves that you're really going to be doing from crouch are going to be things like her while standing 1, her while standing 2, while standing 3, but they're all kind of fast things with a bit of risk. I mean, while standing 1 is not really, but you know, you might be doing that or something. Or her full crouch down forward 4. Though I personally don't think that's a great option to do here. It's pretty quick, it's a lot of risk for a situation where you could still just go for something like that, you know, and continue your pressure. Or, you know, there are many other things you could do, even just going into sidestep 1. So I don't think this impacts her greatly, but it does still give her more options, and it's something for you to be aware of when you're versing other characters too, with stronger full crouch mix-ups. The next one is the changes to key charge. So, key charge historically has given you counter hit properties. So once you key charge, you do a move and it'll have counter hit properties. Now you have to go all the way through the menu here. Oh, we should change that one. You have to go all the way through the menu and turn counter hit on. Go, yep, counter hit's on. Now you get counter hit properties. Key charge does not give you counter hit properties, which is pretty annoying. What it does give instead though is it gives you 150% damage. So you can see there, down back 3 it did 25 damage, 150, when normally it does 17 damage. So it gives you a damage buff. This impacts Nina greatly for her key charge setups. Like the ones at the wall where you might do things like heat burst, key charge, and then you've got a low counter hit string or a mid counter hit string that'll resplat them. This no longer works. Or that too. So anyway, that's kind of neutered a lot of the creative mix-ups that characters can do, and I understand a lot of them are pretty strong, and it did mean that the momentum in the game was a bit much at times, but I think there are other ways they could have handled this. Another thing I want to point out about the key charge, making it so it really is just like a taunt now, or, you know, there's not really a use, is the risks are still the same. So, go block all, we'll go punish, and I don't know why I'm doing it this way, but we are doing it this way. We're going to do a down back 3. So typically I jab, down back 3, nothing, a key charge. Oh, right, sorry, that's another change. When you key charge, whether they hit or block, you lose the key charge property. While if you have the key charge property on, and you don't hit or block, you still get counter hit. So the opponent gains counter hit properties from the key charge. Yeah. We've also seen improved input buffering during the round start. I think that's pretty big because it can be quite annoying when you do a round start and for whatever reason you press a button and you might do something like a down forward 1 and your opponent does a hop kick, and you're like, how did their 15 frame move beat my 13 frame move? So with the improved buffering, you're less likely to press it too late, you know. That's good. Although, I'll still suggest a more defensive start. Huge one is change to side steps though. So this impacts everyone, but this impacts Nina a lot too, of course. So you can now sidestep from toward the screen while you're crouching. So for example, like that. We do a low, tap. Why does this matter? Well, think of Nina and that move, or that move, and how it forces them into crouch. There was a bit of a disparity where, okay, so let's say we're hit, let's say we sidestep, we're sidestepping right. We do this, I do down forward 3, they can step it. We do this, they can't step it. So when you're on the other side, you can imagine, they could only sidestep up before, meaning there was nothing they could do about that. So there was, in quite a few situations, there was an inherent advantage to Nina being on the player 2 side, because you had a lot of force crouch situations where they could only go a certain way, and so, you know, some ways they had to step a certain direction and they couldn't do it unless you did the special down up cancel, which is very awkward to do. Now you don't have to worry about that. Now it's easy and it's accessible to everyone. So this is a nice change. This also changes things with Nina's offense as well. So for example, if you do a down 2 or even a down 4, anything that you recover crouching, you can now step the other way. So if you're doing this kind of thing and then you're trying to bait a whiff, if you know the move they're going to use and you know, oh, I need to sidestep into the foreground, you can now do that. So it's removing that disparity between having an advantage on one side to the other, which is great. Okay, next we have improved sidewalk buffering during recovery. So it's easier to buffer a sidewalk, which is good. I'm assuming what they mean with this is, like, I used to get jumps a lot. Say I'd wake up and I'd see the opponent was running toward me with a running move and I'd think, I want to sidewalk that, which I do a lot. I'd do this and I'd jump, not backwards, like that, because I've double tapped it, but the first one in the buffer hasn't registered. So this is a nice quality of life change as well. Change side again. Strong aerial spikes can be ukemi'd with a button input. This is a change I'm not a fan of, and this is one that does impact Nina quite a bit. So when they're talking about strong aerial spikes, I usually refer to these as bound moves, because they're often the moves that caused the bound interaction or the bound mechanic in Tekken 6 and Tekken Tag 2. So Nina's 1+4 is a prime example of this. So that was the ukemi there, that was the back roll. Previously, you could only do it by holding back. And this kind of limited the opponent's options. So after a combo, you might even like that, because you could do down back 2, run up and do that. And then you'd have something like that you could do, right? Or at the wall, as the classic one goes, classic combo, something like that. Okay, and if they didn't hold back to get up, then you got a free hit, because the option was essentially, they were like this and they're on the ground. So you did that, or you did any ground hitting move, which Nina has a plethora of ground hitting moves. That, you know, so many different things. So many. That if the opponent didn't do it, you got a free option, free hit. Which means if you used a good tool that would also hit them if they stood up and wasn't too risky, or could wall splat, it was very threatening at the wall. But now, not only can you hold back, but you can press an attack button like you'd normally do for an ukemi. So I'll do a recording, and we're just gonna go. And so what I'm going to do first, I'm going to press nothing, and I just fall to the ground. Now I'm going to hold back, and I get up like that. Now I'm going to press an attack button. Oh, now I'm going to mash an attack button. And I get up the same way as holding back by using an attack button, okay? That's the change. So people are more likely to hit a button as they hit the ground because they're taught to tech roll. So this is just, it's kind of limiting mechanics. It means that people are going to get up, more likely to get up, because they don't even have to be paying much attention. They can do the same wake up option they always do, depending on how you knock them to the ground, pretty much. But still, it will force them to roll back, so it could be used to your advantage still. It's, you know, the situation's still the same, it just means people are more likely to get up properly. Quick backslide is now automatic. So this is one I've seen a lot of people get annoyed about in the past. Not this change, but the quick backslide situation. There are a lot of moves that knock you back, and if you hold back, you, similar to the 1+4, if you hold back, you get up quickly, but if you don't hold back, your character stays grounded and the opponent might get a free follow-up. A good example of this is Nina's sidestep forward 2. So if they didn't hold back, they'd stay grounded, and Nina could do like a forward 1+2 or a forward 3, and there'd be no way of avoiding it unless they'd held back. Now though, it does it automatically, so it doesn't matter. If this knocks you back, your character gets up immediately. It's forced to stand up. There might be some consequences in this down the line, but really it's just limiting your freedom, your control of your character. So that's annoying, I think. Quick recovery and quick backslide down state remains active until they fully recover. So this is, I don't like this change too much. It's pretty much weakening Oki. The down state means you can't float them. So if someone's in a down state here, for example, if I do this, I can't get anything, right? I can only get hits that hit grounded. While before, if you ended with this, then you did down 3-4, that would actually float them, and you could get a resplat for another wall hit. So it means there's less reward, or the Oki's worse. They've pretty much just made the ground game Okizeme less appealing, less fun, because there's less mix-up, there's less opportunity for creativity from the aggressor. Doesn't mean there are better defensive options, it means the defensive options are the same. I guess technically you could say they're a little stronger, but it means you're not going to see as much creativity, it's going to see the same patterns, because yeah, you're not going to see exciting new things as much. Another thing that this means, because it's until they fully recover, is if you do something, oh right, sorry, we can't do that anymore. If you do something like this move, you used to be able to time it with Nina, so you'd run up and you'd get a while standing 3+4, and depending on how they got up, you would get a launch on them. So let's say they just stand up. Oh, is that right? We'll go standing block here. Now, right. We want that one. That's what we wanted. Okay. Now, they're still in a grounded state, so it flips them over instead of launching them. Until they're standing. So it means you do it too late and they block it, or you do it too early and they just get flipped over. So there's no chance for a launch anymore. So I don't really like that change either. It also means you can't get back throws and things like that. You used to be able to, in these situations, catch them with a back throw or catch them with back turn wake up stuff. Now you can't. Now they'll just fall to the ground or they'll be able to block it. So yeah, that's really annoying in my opinion too, because once again it's less creativity in your options. I don't think this is strengthening defense, I think it's just limiting creativity. They've apparently fixed the full crouch bug as well. So what it was is when you were blocking a move, there was sort of an automatic thing to allow you to duck earlier. but it meant that you couldn't do full crouch moves. So if you did something like, this may not be a good example, but something like Nina doing that, if you tried to duck and do a wipe the floor, a full crouch down forward 4 motion, it might come out as a down 4, even though you've done the input correct. So you could lose a lot of damage. So this is now improved. Another thing that affects a lot of characters, especially characters like, I guess, Hachi or Reina, that have, you know, full crouch down forward moves as their main crouching launches. But with Nina, I mean, you're more often than not, you're doing something like while standing 2, full crouch up forward 2, 1, while standing 3+4, things like that. But still, it's good that that's fixed. It also skewed some frame data stuff, like some of you may remember the issue with Divulgin's back forward 2-1-2 string, and how even though it was only, I think it was like only -12 or something the second hit, if you did the full crouch thing, your character cancelled the stun earlier than they should have, and it became launch punishable. I think I remember that correctly, or something like that. Anyway. Another big change is combo starters. So they say that combo starters with a misaligned axis is corrected. This shouldn't affect Nina as much as it does. Unfortunately, it affects her quite a bit. So it was intended for a lot of launches where you do a certain move and then, you'd launch them, but you might be off axis, and then your consistent juggle that you do, the bread and butter, wouldn't work. And so they've tried to simplify this so it's more consistent. So for example, the one they did was Jun. They said, you know, they did a few, but Jun's up forward 4-3, so her essential 2-hit hop kick. You could now, it would now be more consistent, the combo afterwards, because of this. This seems to have had a bit of a bleeding effect for Nina, because she's very axis dependent on her combos. So for example, with her down forward 2, the bread and butter, or the main combo that I use off a down forward 2 is launch up forward 4, sidestep right down forward 1 into butterflies. Now if I go from position start here and I try this, that doesn't work anymore, because the axis is now different. Because you're thrown slightly off axis by this. It's actually throwing you off a little bit. So what you need to do now is you don't do the sidestep right. They've made this easier. So you do launch, like that. Right, so you no longer do the sidestep. This is a big change, because, I mean, it skews the juggle. It changes what you're used to. What you've learned is now different. Big change for reverse ivory cutter too. Reverse ivory cutter always put you off to the right a little bit, but now it puts you, well, it sort of turns them. So you're more on the left now. So before, the combo that people would do would either be launch up forward 4 into butterflies. Oh, with down forward 2, by the way, you can also do launch into up forward 4 butterflies now, which you couldn't do before. So yeah, the axis change there is technically a buff for down forward 2. But for back 1+4, you do the up forward 4 and you're still too far off axis. So you used to be able to do launch up forward 4, quarter circle forward 1 into butterflies, or launch up forward 4 straight into butterflies. But now if you do that, it won't work. You're too far off axis. Whoops. And even if you do the quarter circle forward 1, oh, that's not a quarter circle forward 1. Yeah, you're too far off axis. So now what you need to do if you want to do this route is you now have to do what you had to do with the down forward 2 before. Now you need to do up forward 4, sidestep right, down forward 1. And then you can do that route. So that's a funny contrast there. Funny how that's changed, so you no longer do that. A little bit annoying, I think, but it's just something to get used to. And geyser cannon, so down back 3+4 or while standing 3+4, always in the past put you a little bit to the left, but now it's a bit straighter. So before, because it was to the left, what I would generally do is either the up forward 4, sidestep right, down forward 1, or I do side step 1, back, up, forward 4 into butterflies. But if I do that now, I think this one still works. I didn't get the one, sorry. This one doesn't work. Or it's less consistent, I feel. Yeah. So it's the same sort of thing, where you can get one butterfly, but it's just less consistent. But the up forward 4, side step right 1, also a bit awkward. That works. But I believe you don't even have to do that anymore. Oh, come on. Okay, you do. So with this one, you also need to go off axis. So it's a small change for geyser cannon, but really a big change for reverse ivory cutter, and a big change for down forward 2, but a buff really. Things like up forward 4 doesn't really matter. I think we're more looking at the ones that launch them up high. If you look at side step 2, they're pretty much straight now. So they used to be off axis, but the Nina realigns. So you no longer have to really care about what side you step to before you do it. So that's more consistent there, which I don't know. I like combo expression, and I like the idea that you need to change your combo based on the axis and based on the situation. But you still have to do that, just not as much. So I'd say even though this is a change, it's overall a buff for Nina, but it means that the combo routes you were doing have to change a little bit. We now have reduced chip damage during heat state. So, while Nina's in heat, previously it did 30%. Oh, hold on, we'll change that. Now it does 25. They've also reduced the chip damage on heat smashes and heat engages, so they're less. I think the health recovery is also less too, which is good. I think everyone agrees we need less chip damage, because you can still do insane amounts. But that's a lot still, right? During heat, grounded hits give 30% recoverable life. So, wait, I need that. Really neat. We'll get there, guys. So if we do this, you can see there's 70% recoverable damage. You can look at the damage there. You can see Nina's health there. That from the beginning to there is yeah, you can see sort of the portion of recoverable life there, right? I don't know how else to say it. But now if I've got them in heat, and we do the same thing, you can see there's way more recoverable life. So instead of it being like 1/3 recoverable, now it's 2/3 recoverable. A little bit different to that, but you see the point. So that's good. So you can see there's improved defense or opportunity for a comeback while you're in heat. Which isn't a surprise, but maybe it can encourage people, I guess, to attack people in heat more. I don't know. Heat dash won't activate when used on a downed opponent. This is a good change for Nina. This is one that helps her a bit, I think, just with input errors. So for example, you do this. If you held forward before, you'd burn your heat, but you'd get nothing guaranteed. Or you do something like that. If you've got the timing wrong, you might use your heat but not get anything guaranteed. But now, it'll only work. It'll only work if you do it. Well, it'll only really work if you're getting it in a situation where you'll get something guaranteed. So see, I'm not getting a combo before, but I was getting it where it would float them. opposed to if I take too long and they're in a grounded state, then it doesn't come out even though I hold the forward. And of course if I do it fast enough there, same sort of thing. So it means it's only gonna work when it gives you a reward. So I guess that's buffed aggression really, isn't it? But yeah, I think that's a good change because it's an accidental thing when people get that generally. Power Crush properties removed from Heat Dash. So this is one of the biggest requested ones for Nina, of course. So it's impacted pretty much everyone that has a Power Crush outside of a stance. So her Blonde Bomb, no longer a Heat Dash. Still a Power Crush, but it's not a Heat Dash. I think that's fine. I think that was well warranted. So no issues here. But yeah, it does affect Nina's comeback options or Tekken 8 defensive options of mashing Power Crush any time that you're being attacked, as a lot of people seem to do. So now you get less reward for doing that, and there's still the risk of if they block your neg forward tag. So this impacts her a lot, because now you can't make it a +5 Power Crush that knocks down for like 60 damage if they do get hit. You know, a well-warranted change to reduce what I still see as a type of aggression, because you're contesting in a situation where you believe your opponent's going to attack. You're not doing a defensive option, you're challenging. It's like calling a Dragon Punch a defensive option in Street Fighter, you know. I guess some people do. Next one is loosen the window for 1+2 throw breaks. So this is good for anyone like me that does not use a mat button for throw breaks. I can't count the number of times that I've tried to break a throw and I've accidentally gone like 1 then 2. So you see here, I did the 1, then I did the 1+2, and I did the 1 a frame early, and it worked. It broke the throw. I did that then, but it was 2 frames and it didn't work. So it still depends on the cancel window, of course. But that's what I understand to be the change here. So it means you've got a little bit more leniency. Not much. You've got a little bit more leniency on breaking it. I believe that's what it meant. It didn't mean that there's actually a longer than 20 frame break window, right? It's loosened the window for 1+2 breaks. So it's that it's got more leniency for when you're inputting. So you don't have to have a perfect 1+2. You can be a little bit off, which is good because that's a common issue that people have experienced compared to even Tekken 7. Increased recovery on whiff normal throws. I mean, these are homing, so I think that's fine. Even if they're easy to break, they're a good tool just because of being homing. So I think that's a nice change to make. You're not really gonna, you're not gonna be stepping this. They're gonna be either ducking or backdashing, and even then they've been quite tight to punish. So having 6 extra frames is a big deal here. So good. The thrower recovers 1 point of recoverable health. So we need to set me to receive some recoverable health. So we'll go do it. Right, and it doesn't stay on. What if we go... So good. You can see that little chunk. You saw they recovered that 1 piece of health. Go them. That's nice. More incentive to use throws, which I think they're really trying to push for people to use more throws. Spring kick. Spring kick now does 15 damage instead of 20, and is from frames 21 to 10 to frames 24 to 13. So what that means Spring kick now does 15 damage instead of 20, and it's from -21 to -10 to -24 to 13. So what that means is less damage, less reward from doing it, and less safe. That's good. So it means that most of the time spring kick is going to be a launch punish. This is great for Nina, one, because people love challenging the spring kicks, but everyone does. But she's already got good options to float the spring kick, but now it's going to be easier, less reward to them if you get it wrong. And if you just block it, I mean, if you're unsure of the frames and it is only neg 13 or neg 14, Nina's one of the lucky few that have a safe 15 frame launcher. So it means she's got one of the lower risk punishment options here to beat it. Player 2, increased move tracking fixed. So this was a bug that affected a lot of people, a lot of characters, but Nina was a prime example of it. The main situation came from this. So this was possible, but kind of tricky to do before. However, when you're on this side, it was literally impossible. Or I think some characters could, or if the time was very tight. So sorry, literally impossible is not the correct term, but it was incredibly difficult compared to doing it when you were on the player 1 side. So when Nina was on the player 1 side. So if Nina was on the player 2 side, this was essentially a homing option. So this change, the increased move tracking fix, it's another universal thing, and it's a welcome one as well. It means, again, more consistency and less advantages on what side you're on. Super slow motion sequences. So this one I'm just mentioning because it could happen to Nina. It was more this interactions with certain moves, especially like, I think like heat moves and stuff, where if you're doing a slow motion sequence, some moves just seem to have weird priority where the hitboxes and the hurt boxes would go all over the place and things would whiff when they shouldn't. So now if you're on, can I do it on here? If I go player health 1, opponent health 1, that's down 100? Yeah. So if we do something like this now, does it work? No, it doesn't. It doesn't in practice mode. Okay, but if we have like a slow-mo interaction at low health, what looks like will happen should happen now. There are a lot of times when it didn't before. So that's good. That's another thing people have been wanting to fix for a long time. And the last one is in battle status. So things like showing the damage in your combos, or if you've got a counter hit, or if you've got a punish, or those kind of things. The markers that you can see with damage display here. Those things are all, they're all in the match. So you can see I got counter, the punish to the side, those kind of things. And yeah, the clean counter, those sort of things. Those displays happen during the match. I don't think they're in the way. I think it's quite nice to see that. So I think that's a welcome change. I know there were concerns about the counter hit displaying too early and people using as a visual confirm, but we've already got these big hit effects that do it. Like, you've already got a visual effect, I think, to help you see it before the word is displayed. That might be something people can use, but I don't think it's any different to looking at the health bar or looking at the spark or anything like that. So yeah, welcome change. So those are all the universal changes that I'm going to talk about today. I feel like most of them impact Nina a fair bit, but they impact every character a fair bit because they're universal changes. They're things that everyone has to deal with. But I hope you liked seeing a bit of how it works from the perspective of Nina and perspective of me, a Nina player. The next video I'll do will go over the changes that are specific to Nina, and there's a lot of those as well. So thank you everyone. Please comment below what you think of the patch. Try to be nice. And let me know what you think of this video, if there's anything I've got incorrect or if there's anything you'd like to discuss further. I'm a Friendly Tree, and I'll see you later.